How we doing, everybody?
I guess we'll just start with what did you like about the two rookie specialists there, and what kind of led you all to make things?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been doing this now 31 years, 16 college, 15 pro, and I'll tell you what, I don't know if I ever had this unique situation that we had this offseason with 4 really good specialists. Obviously not including Zach Wood. How I feel about him too, but no, just the kickers and punters. So it was a really unique situation to have a bat. I've been involved with battles for one. I don't know if I've ever had a year like this where we had kind of the competition that we had. And I want to start off by saying I got really the utmost respect for Will Lutz and Blake Gillikin, not only as players, but as people. And I think kind of what gets caught, or lost in a moment sometimes is the human element of the game. I've been around here out now going on my 5th season here with the Saints, and obviously have a tremendous relationship with Will. I've known Blake for a long time, and so that's the part of it that's really difficult. And as I told both of them, Will and Blake, they're one of the 32 best at what they do, and they're going to be kicking and punting, for years to come. It was just a unique situation where we had 2 rookies that really performed well. We had a battle in both ways, and so listen, starting with the kicker specifically, both those guys were 90+%, from the day that we started off season, and I don't know if I've ever seen that either with 2 kickers in the same place. So we chart every competitive kick. I've seen some of your numbers, by the way, guys. You were way off. But no, we chart every competitive kick, and really those guys they truly made each other better. I know Blake would be the first one to tell you that he learned a lot from Will. I know Will's going to continue to have a great career, and so again, those are difficult decisions. It made my job over the course, whenever the offseason started, enjoyable. At the same time, it's a really tough when you come down to this week and have to make those final decisions. So.
Zach Wood spoke yesterday in the line range about obviously the relationship he developed with those 2 guys, almost a brotherhood is how he described it. The chemistry built from that trio, long snapper,
Yeah.
kicker. You feel like Zach, is willing and ready to step in and kind of rebuild that chemistry?
Yeah, it's the human element that I talked about earlier. Zach and Blake and Will have a very tight bond, and that's going to, it is like a brotherhood. Those guys are really close friends. You got guys that are in each other's weddings and things like that. So there's a personal side of it that's involved, and so I think Zach certainly understands this is a business and understands the situation. At the same time, he's losing 2 friends that are leaving the building that he's been with on a daily basis, and so. We spend so much time at what we do, and the specialists, as you guys notice, probably spend more time together than any other group because they're not kicking or punting every single day, and there's a lot of personal time. There's some downtime between offensive and defensive meetings, and so that truly is a battery. It's kind of like a pitcher and a catcher in baseball. Those guys develop a bond. They really get to understand each other, the ins and outs, and they make each other better. It's very unique to this game because without each other, they can't have success. And there's really, I guess you can liken it to a quarterback throwing to a receiver, if you will, but, there is a tight bond there, and there's really a uniqueness to the specialists. And so, yeah, listen, that battery got broke up, if you will, but also, obviously, Zach is worked with Lou and with Blake Grupe, this whole offseason, and he's handled it very, very well, and he's been a professional about it. No doubt there was a disappointment involved on the personal side, though, and that's natural.
You said both guys are over 90%. What were some of the determining factors between Will and Blake?
Yeah, it's a great question. Literally, when you have a competition that's this close, you're really looking at everything. It's all encompassing, and so you're breaking. They were very, very similar in their field goal percentage, and you start looking at things like operation time, elevation on the ball, hang time on kickoffs. You're looking at Blake Grupe. The one thing you worry about, I've been involved with this before when I was with the Dolphins. We got a couple of rookie kickers. You're always worried about a personality with that young guy. And you guys have talked to Blake Grupe a number of times, and you can see he's just got a really good personality for for the position. He's kind of like a water off a duck's butt kind of guy, and and just move on to the next thing. But that helps in that position. You guys know, you've talked to you before. Kicking is very much like golfing, and you got to be able to you hit one in the woods. You got to be able to drop it and hit the next one on the green, and so that's what kicking is very, very similar. And so he's got a really good personality. So all encompassing. There really wasn't one determining factor. Certainly, Will has more experience, and he's been under the spotlight. At the same time, there was really nothing about Blake that gave us the impression that he wouldn't be able to handle the situation naturally.
And then just like looking at his college percentages,
Yeah.
why were they so low? What
Yeah.
some of the things that were going on there that,
Yeah, this is going to sound a little bit shocking, but I've been doing this for a long time, and one of the last things we look at is field goal percentage for a college kicker. You look at, we drafted Jason Sanders with the Dolphins. You go back and look his senior year, I think he was like 64%. If you looked at the 32 kickers in the NFL, you'd be shocked at what some of their field goal percentages were. The game is much different. I don't want to get too technical on you, but the hashes in college are different. The football is different. The operation is different. Some guys are at 7 yards, not 8. There's a lot of little things that go into it. And so ever since Blake started working from an NFL standpoint, meaning operation time, footballs, hashes, all that, he's done very, very well with that. So I think the general fan would look at a kicker's body of work and immediately just go to field goal percentage. Some guys have really bad operations, and when I say that, snapper, holder, Blake's a guy that switched schools. He worked with different guys, and so for me and for us, one of the key things was getting him with Zach Wood every day, getting him with our holders every day, and he's handled that very, very well. So I know people immediately go back and Wikipedia and look up field goal percentage, and I get that. I understand it. But it really is a different game. The special teams college game and the special teams NFL game is a really, really different.
So there's no way for you guys to middle down the field, you got to put eyes on everybody?
Yeah, with kickers, what happens is kickers and punters, what they do is once the combine process starts and the draft process starts, they switch to NFL footballs, they switch to the hashes, they switch all those things. And so they go to these different showcases, whether it be the NFL Combine, there's other special team showcases. So Grupe and Hedley, neither of those guys got invited to the Combine. So, I went down, we at their pro days or at these different, different showcases where you have to evaluate that film a little bit closer than you are really their game film. Lou Hedley didn't kick an NFL-style punt one time in college. He was a rugby punter solely in college. And I don't blame anybody. He should have been. The rules are different. And so that's why you don't see the rugby kicks in the NFL. And so the biggest transition for him was making that switch over from rugby to traditional. And although he brings a little bit of different element to the game with his Australian background and the rugby-style kicks, at the same time, he had to make a big transition. So there's a lot of nuances that go into it. It's not just how far can I kick the ball, and there's operation time. There's all those different things, and both those guys have handled that very, very well.
What did you learn so much about Lou then, if it was kind of switching to a new style while they were here?
Yeah, listen, it was a concern. I went and worked him out at his pro day. I thought he handled that really, really well down in Miami. I was there. He had a really good day that day. So he kind of made our short list for the draft of potential free agents. The thing that was a concern, naturally, is that when you have a rugby guy like that or an Australian kicker like that, to make the transition to kick regular punts. There's a number of guys in the NFL, Michael Dixon, Mitch Wishnowski, a couple guys that pop into my head that are Aussie type guys that had to make that transition and have done very, very well. So he falls more in the lines of one of those guys, and so he brings a different style. He's not your traditional end over or turn over the ball kind of guy. He has a different style approach. But the bottom line in punting is at the end of the day, there's one number that matters, and that's net punting. And you can get there a lot of different ways. You can kick the ball 70 yards and have a 30-yard return, get a 40-yard net, or you can kick the ball 40 yards on the paint. And so it's the same result, just a different way of getting there.
Is that what he specialized
Well, I think
Yeah,
listen, I think they're two different style guys, Blake and Lou. They're getting there a different way. I think Lou has a couple more, maybe tools in the box, if you will.
So for each situation, like if you wanted to hang, if you wanted to be to the side of the corner, he was like.
That's correct. He's just got to. You have just a little more variety of kicks.
When you say his style is different, what's the best way for a layman to try
Yeah.
to describe what his style
Honestly, that's, if you look throughout the league, there's the Australians that have come into our league and done very, very well. I mentioned Michael Dixon, I mentioned Mitch Wisnowski. Those guys are used to playing Australian rules football or rugby, and they're more rugby-style kickers where the ball has a different rotation on it, where a traditional guy like Morstead or Gillikin is more of a hit the ball, try to get a turnover. These guys have a different rotation to the ball. So, but there's a number of guys kind of that have come through the last 5 to 10 years in the NFL that are that kind of style, the Australian style.
How does him, help him do this? That's what he's done.
Yeah, and that's something he did. That's something he did in Miami, and so he had that background. He did it in junior college. He's obviously taken a different road than most guys, a 30-year-old rookie. But he did it in JUCO. He did it at Miami. It's probably the thing that he's improved on the most since the day he walked in here, because we do it a little bit different than he did it in college. But he's done a good job with that.
What are some of the unique things about working with a 30-year-old rookie? Is it just kind of a maturity?
Well, you see what he looks like. I have short hair and 0 tattoos, and he's got long hair and about 7 million tattoos. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, he's a fantastic person. Getting to know him is, I know the special teams coach at the Miami Hurricanes really well. We worked together, and so I kind of knew his personality a little bit from my good friend there, and so. He has treated, the thing the biggest feather I could put in Lou's cap is he has treated himself like any other rookie. He's not treating himself like a 30-year-old. He's treating himself like a 21 or 22-year-old, and he's gone through this rookie process with a really good attitude. You would think sometimes maybe an older guy is kind of like going to have a different feel to it, but he's really approached it in a really, really professional way. I have a lot of respect for the way he's handled that.
Is there room for him to just, if he is learning a lot of new stuff about, just the game of football?
Yeah.
Is there room for him to kind of grow maybe more so than we?
I do. I actually do think he's got he's got a higher ceiling. I think he's got room for improvement. There's some nuances we're working on in his game. I do think there's some improvement there. He's hit some really good balls in practice and things like that. That I think there's some room for growth there. And again, he is still learning. Both guys, like any rookie, they're both still learning the nuances of the NFL game.
I want to go back a couple questions.
Sure.
We were talking about just the limited time you get seeing the kickers and punters after college. Was there a moment or time in that just limited period of watching Blake Grupe that you can remember that you were like, we got to go get him?
Yeah, he had 2 really good outings, 2 good appearances. He had a really good pro day at Notre Dame. He had a really good day that day. That kind of jumped off the screen when we watched that. And he had another showcase that I didn't attend because we weren't allowed by the rules, but I watched the video. It was a special team showcase, a college special team showcase. He had 2 really good, outings at those 2 particular, and that's how he kind of got into our, onto our radar, if you will, and then we kind of did more background from there.
Darren, one of the things with Dennis kind of just like, I don't know how to exactly to explain it, but something about the way he kicks the ball is why a 5'7", 150-pound guy
Yeah.
is able to get it 60 yards.
Yeah, he generates tremendous power. He's got again, if you want to get real kicking technical, I will. I love talking about it, as you can tell. He really generates a ton of power because he has a really, really big backswing. I mean, if you watch him and slow him down, his foot. Again, I liken it to golf. A big backswing. The one thing that's really impressive about that is the power that he generates from the backswing. A lot of times you have erratic hits when you have a large backswing, but I think the fact that he's a smaller guy and more compact is the reason he can elevate the ball really well. So he does a really good job with that. So he's got a little bit different approach to it. But yeah, listen, everyone has the same reaction. You guys have heard all the stories about not getting let into the locker room, and I don't know if you heard the one that a couple of our coaches thought he was somebody's son the first day here, walking around the locker room, and then everyone has the same reaction when they see him kick the ball. It's kind of like, okay, this guy belongs. And it was a pretty cool moment to watch Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas and those guys, when the word came down yesterday, go over and talk to him and congratulate him. And I think he's earned a lot of people's respect in this. In fact, I know he has earned a lot of people's respect in this building, so it's pretty cool.
Still have you. Was there anybody on this roster that stood out so much in your arena that we might not have recognized? Linebackers, DBs, anybody that are in their roster spot for special teams?
Well, I think a lot of those, you mentioned it, linebackers and DBs are the guys that make up the majority of our core. So those guys that aren't starters per se, a lot of those guys had pretty good off seasons here. DeMarco Jackson's a guy that got hurt last year early, and so there really wasn't a large sample size and evaluation. I thought he had a really nice preseason in our department, special teams. I thought there was a number of DBs that played well. I thought Howden played really well in this last game. Lonnie Johnson's had some good moments. Ugo, Ike Yedem. I mean, there's a bunch of those guys that are reserve DBs and linebackers. You guys have already seen what Zach Bond has been able to do. So I think there's a number of those guys that really, did a solid job for us, and will probably be the guys that make up, a large part of our core.
And who do you expect the two starting gunners to be?
Well, we know one of them. We know one of them. We have is JT Grad. I think the one thing that our personnel department did a great job of this offseason, we added a bunch of options. Last year we were a little bit limited in that area in terms of who was going to do it if somebody got hurt. But there's a number of guys. I mentioned Howden, Ugo, Lonnie, Ike. All those guys have gotten a number of reps and have all done well. So I feel like we have some more options there. We're going to it might be situational, to be honest with you. We have a number of guys we can roll through there. So
The difference in styles of punting between Blake and Lou, is there anything different the punt team or gunners have to do differently with Lou in there?
No, not necessarily. It just ties into their releases and things like that. But as far as the protection goes and the coverage goes, we kind of have our base principles. But again, if you would call Blake Gillikin more of a traditional style guy, and Lou, like I said, more of an Australian rugby style guy, that's kind of the best way to. But as far as the coverage goes and things like that, just knowing where we're aiming the locations and things like that is important for the coverage guys.
What would the situational gunners look like? What would be some of the things that would, some of the situations that would make you go up one guy over another?
Yeah, so there's, we call them going in punts. Anytime we're over the 50-yard line, you're trying to keep the ball out of the end zone. There's some guys that are better than that than others, quite frankly, because sometimes that guy's got to play the football and not the returner. And maybe some guys that'll handle. You guys have seen us in the past use some receivers in that department, whether it be Traquan or Callaway. There's guys like that in the past that have done that role. So there's certain guys that are better at that. And then if we're really backed up, and we know what kind of, if we're going to get doubled outside, we may want to use, different guys there, whether it be bigger or faster. So where we are on the field it has a lot to do with the style gunners we want to use.
How much of a luxury is that for you to maybe be able to do something?
Yeah, listen, the more tools, the more tools we have in the box, the better in every department. And so that's like I said, I think we've done a great job roster-wise of adding a lot more pieces, to that puzzle. And so I'm excited. I'm excited for the year. Listen, it's two rookie kickers, and that's always for a special teams coach. I've been through it before. It's interesting, but I'm really excited for the start of the year.
Darren, the new kickoff rules that the entire camp to kind of go over it, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, well, I'm going to say this. I think I only counted one time in the preseason where someone executed the fair catch. I think where you're going to see it maybe show up a little bit more now in the regular season, because in the preseason, everyone's kind of trying to work on their blocking and their tackling and their coverage, things like that. So you really didn't see it come up. I think you'll start to see it a little bit more, and I think it'll be a little bit more situational. There's a couple times, there's some situational things, end of games and things like that, where I think you'll see it, but I don't know how much you'll see it in regular kickoff situations. I'm actually curious myself to see how teams utilize that, and then how teams counterattack that. If you know you're playing a team that might fair catch it, they might start to see different types of kicks and things like that. So I'm kind of curious to see how it plays out. Appreciate it, guys.